Welcome to the Nobody Guide to Life, where we provide tips and tools for personal growth, personal development, and your spiritual journey that you can use right now in your everyday life. I'm J.A. Plosker. Thank you for joining us. You can always find out more at nobodiesview.com, thenobodybible.com, or you can check us out at Twitter and Facebook at nobodiesview. Our show notes are at nobodiesview.com, and if you like what you hear, we'd welcome a subscription or a review. We'd appreciate it. In today's episode, I want to talk about touch. Now, there's a lot to touch. It's a way we explore and get to know the world, but a touch can mean we care about someone we love and want to help them. And on the journey of personal and spiritual growth, touch can be a powerful way to progress. I was really curious about this healing power of touch, so I reached out to our guest today to find out more about how he uses touch in his life and career. Howard Chait has studied mind-body medicine for over 25 years. With a degree in psychology, a background in religious sciences and spirituality, and a license in massage therapy, he incorporated biotouch, deep tissue, trigger point therapy, cranial sacral, and Jin Shin Jyutsu to create his own unique mind-body healing experience. You can find out more about Howard and his healing techniques at howardshealthhaven.com. So thank you for joining us, Howard.
Thanks for having me here.
No, it's a pleasure. So I want to begin. You have quite a background, a lot of experience. Can you talk to me a little bit about what prompted that journey to become a healer? Where did that desire come from? How did that show up in your life?
Well, it definitely was not something I was planning on doing in my life.
Yeah.
I was actually down. I was at the University of Arizona studying pre-med, and I got into a lot of the psychology classes down there and switched over to psychology. And in my last semester down there, I ended up getting really bad mononucleosis, and I was having anxiety attacks, panic attacks. I just couldn't get the energy up in my body to do anything, and it was causing a huge problem in my nervous system, and no one knew what was going on. I didn't know what was going on. I thought I was having heart attacks. I mean, it was horrible. So I ended up in my last semester down at U of A dropping out, and that was the beginning of my spiritual journey, really. I was 20 years old, and I was trying to figure out what was going on with me. The mono would not go away. I ended up going to doctor after doctor after doctor and doing antidepressants and anti-anxiety pills and everything, and nothing was working. And I just felt numb inside, really. And ended up, I was out in San Diego, California for a couple of weeks, and ended up running into a lady who told me about the psychologist who lived in Boulder, Colorado, who had just written a book about anxiety and post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah.
I ended up going to Boulder, Colorado to meet this guy.
Just like
that. Well, I told my parents, they were concerned. They didn't know what was going on.
Right.
I told my parents, I really want to meet this guy. I just have a feeling that this is where I need to be. And they were cool. And I flew up there with my dad and met this gentleman, and only worked with him for about a week. I actually stayed up there. I ended up getting an apartment up there.
Wow.
And I knew that being in Boulder was a place for me to get better. And it was like part of my journey, my spiritual journey. And I was there for a year. And in that year, I ended up really getting connected to the healing community up there.
Yeah.
And the spiritual community, and looking at Hinduism and Buddhism and Judaism and everything on a deeper level, but also getting connected with people who did energy work and touch healing. And I got worked on, and it worked.
Now, when you say touch healing, is this the biotouch part of your experience?
No, actually, I had not even discovered biotouch at all.
Okay.
I was up there. This was about 92, and I was up there. I had never ever experienced any energy work of any type.
Yeah.
I just met some people that were doing it. I don't even know what kind of work they were doing. Whatever energy work it was doing, it was working. I was feeling better. I had more energy. I started getting more into life. I started exercising again. I started just feeling like, okay, I'm back. I was beyond who I was before, actually. I was, it was a new part of myself that I discovered.
So you went beyond where you were before the mono even, you feel. You kind of grew.
Correct, right. Yeah, because I was pretty mainstream then. I was in college. I was in a fraternity. I was going, psychology pre-med. I was like, this is my life. And I didn't really, I was just kind of living like this is the way it is without really having a purpose.
Right.
You know, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Right.
After I left Boulder, I was like, I have a purpose. I know what my spiritual journey is. I know it was a whole new part of me that I touched, that I was. So I ended up coming back to Phoenix and ended up spending a few months in Phoenix, but just getting this calling to go down to Tucson, which is back to where I was by University of Arizona. I ended up going down to Tucson, and within 2 months, I ended up finding a friend of mine introduced me to BioTouch, which I knew my path was changed, and I knew that I needed to get more into. I was focusing on going to chiropractic school now.
Right.
It had been a few years since I was at university by now, and I knew my path was, okay, I want to get into the touch healing modalities, and chiropractic I thought was the right way to go. So when I found BioTouch, when I was introduced to it, I was like, cool, this is a great tool I can use when I go to chiropractic school. You know, I have this to make some money while I was going to school.
Right.
And ended up doing BioTouch is a nonprofit organization down in Tucson. It's an amazing organization. They've been around 40 years now, and they teach their technique is completely and totally different from any other touch modality out there. It's hard to explain exactly.
Well,
but,
is it a person was it started by, is it a foundation? Was it a person who started it? How did you come into contact with that? What was that path?
So I was a friend of mine down there, just that I had met when I got down there. He was a Japanese gentleman who was in the States for about a year, and he had found BioTouch, and he said, you need to check this place out. So I went there and I checked it out. I got treated myself, and mind you, when I was up in Boulder, I had some treatments, some energy work, so I was getting into like that path and wanting to experience more.
Right.
So I was like, cool, I'll go check it out, you know. And I went to get a treatment. I felt a lot better after getting treatments, and then I was like, well, I think I need to get certified and learn this technique. So I got certified. The whole organization is nonprofit, and it's all run by volunteer staff. And so then I started volunteering at the center there. People come in and receive a 40-minute treatment for free, and or leave a donation. As I did that, I realized volunteering really was opening up these different new opportunities in my life. And I started, this was a whole new aspect of my life that came around, like, oh my God, helping other people is actually the way it's supposed to be. So, you know, and I saw.
Well, that's actually right. I remember when I was doing therapy groups, and that was one of the big suggestions when people were getting caught up in their own head was go out and volunteer with people or animals or whatever, and just get out of your own head.
Oh yeah, for sure. You know, when the whole thing was going on with the real estate market in 2008, I remember I was watching an interview with Anthony Robbins on Good Morning America. I think Matt Lauer. The first question he asked, everyone was freaking out. The first thing he said to Anthony Robbins was, "What would you suggest people do in this crazy time?" And Anthony Robbins just looked right at the camera and said, "Go help someone." And that, I'm like, you know, that's so true. It's all about helping other people. So I realized by volunteering and helping other people, it was opening up avenues in my life that I couldn't even have imagined would have opened if it wasn't for volunteering. So that opened up me to one morning I woke up and I got this little message, go to the massage therapy school and get your license down in Tucson. So I went to the massage therapy school, applied, I got accepted, and I got my massage license.
So by that point, you were into BioTouch.
Yes.
You were into chiropractic. And where does Jin Shin fit into all this?
Well, Jin Shin Jyutsu it was a technique. One of the electives that I took in massage therapy school was an intro to Jin Shin Jyutsu. And I was so resistant to it at the time because I was doing BioTouch, and I really did not want to learn another energy technique. But I'm like, okay, enough. I don't need to learn anything else about this. I want to get more in the physical massage therapy kind of stuff. But I was I had to take this class. Actually, it wasn't an elective. It was actually something I had to take, and ended up the instructor and I became best of friends. And I ended up, the first person I worked on actually was my mother. I
That's
know,
interesting.
and the results I got with her, and mind you, she's the type that doesn't really feel much when she gets energy work or even body work like massage. She's not that type of person. I worked on her the first time and she started laughing hysterically. It was crazy. Like all this stuff was coming out, and I'm like, oh my god, this
Wow.
actually is working. Like it was healing, obviously healing laughter, and it was going and going for 5 minutes. She just couldn't stop. I realized, oh, Jin Shin Jyutsu might be what I'm supposed to be doing next here. So,
Right.
so I finished massage therapy school. Jin Shin Jyutsu was a whole different course I had to take to get certified. I had to go through a 2-year program.
Wow.
So I ended up with, Jin Shin is more about the meridians, the Eastern philosophy, it's Japanese, more about like the acupuncture theory.
Can you give an example of that for people who don't know? So, a lot of people know about acupuncture and they know about energy and touch, but can you talk about just a little bit for people about how Jinshin intervenes in that, what its purpose is?
So, well, Jin Shin Jyutsu is more about redirecting the body's own natural energy to
Okay.
start working for itself. So a lot of like if it gets blocked or stuck in the meridian system, what happens is the energy starts working against us to where it creates a disease.
Well, what creates a block?
Okay, a block can be anything. I mean, it goes way beyond the physical world. It can be a spiritual block, something that
Okay.
someone's born with. It could be genetic. It could be whatever their karma, whatever they came into this world with, that
Right.
that is blocking. So it creates block in the energy field. So the way I look at it is the energy field is like the blueprint of the physical before the
Okay.
physical manifests. Okay, so we all
Okay.
have a blueprint that we come into this world with, and not all blueprints are perfect buildings. Okay, they're not perfect bodies. We have
Right.
things that we have to deal with, and the thing is we're an animate object, so we have the ability to actually shift and change as energy beings. We can redirect, we can change our own body's blueprint so that the physical starts following a better blueprint and then manifests into the physical world a whole different being.
If we ignore those
Mm-hmm.
blocks and we don't do anything about them, how does that look? What does that create for us?
Just an imbalance, like things in our lives. It can look many different ways, but
Right.
our lives not working the way we want our life to work, no matter
Right,
how we
right.
can be efforting and not getting the results we want. The
Okay.
mind body connection is just not integrated.
Right. Okay.
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 So, but it can create physical disease for sure. Not only in the mental, not only the emotional, but physical disease happens over a lot of times chronic period of an imbalance going on in the energy system. So,
So the practitioner then, so then you would come in and you assist with, like you said, with removing those obstacles or getting those blocks to clear.
correct. So I would come in basically the way Jin Shin Jyutsu works is feeling the pulses and getting a
Okay.
diagnosis of what's really going on in the energy system with the blueprint of the body, and then doing what's called safety energy lock flows that open up and redirect that energy to start working in the proper way for the
Okay.
body and to remove the block. It's like basically if a river is stagnant, and this is how acupuncture works too. If you have a stagnant river, things start to smell, mold develops, you've got the little
Right.
cesspools. So I go in there basically and flush it all out. I get the river flowing again. And I do that with my own hands by holding a certain sequence of points. And these sequences come from the Japanese old ancient texts from Japan, and it was developed in Japan, and then they brought to America in the mid
Right.
50s.
So you get a diagnosis,
Right.
and then you put your hands in certain predetermined points, and then is it very formulaic, or because I notice you have a lot of experience in your bio. You say you have your own unique
Correct.
experience. Can you go outside the prescribed formulas? Can you go by your own feeling and your own intuition when you're working with someone?
Yes, and thanks for asking that because I was just about to go that way. Yeah, for
Oh,
sure.
okay.
Yeah, I mean I use so Jin Shin is just a technique. BioTouch is just a technique, and I can do that directly from what I learned, and I can go by the textbook for sure. And there's all these sequence of points. Or I can use my intuition to get a feeling for what's going on with someone. And that actually has built up over time, because it's been over 20 years now I've been doing this, to where when I touch someone, I get a feel exactly what is happening in their energy system, in their physical body. And I then go, okay, I can use this tool from here, from the toolbox, and this one, and this, and create my own system.
Now, how long, I'm always interested to hear about, this show is really about a journey.
Right.
And, you have so many years of experience, and I'd be interested to know at what point did you feel like you were confident really in your ability to diagnose and determine what was going on instead of maybe questioning it?
When I started seeing results more and more with the clients I was working on, I realized, oh, I'm doing something right here. It took a while. It really takes a while to get the pulses and feel what's going on in the meridian with the pulse diagnosis. So that is the hardest thing, using the intuition, because it's more not only about getting the reading physically, but intuitively getting it of what's going on in the energy field. So that probably took about 5 years or so for me to really get that. And still to this day, I mean, there's some puzzles out there. Some people who have some pretty chronic stuff going on. And so it's like going through the layers of the onion. I have to do a flow and then feel the pulse again and really figure out what the next step to do is.
All right, so that's interesting. So we talk about this podcast as being tips and tools for personal growth, personal development, and your spiritual journey. And a lot of times we run into resistance on that journey, right? So we pick up a new practice, or we really want something for ourselves, but we encounter an obstacle, and a lot of times it stops our progress. When you're working with people, do you ever, because you come in with the best intention, the healing intention, when you're working with clients who are maybe either, and I don't know if you've experienced this, if they're skeptical or they aren't open to the healing experience, how do you handle that as a practitioner?
I love that.
Where do you go with
those
that?
people.
Okay. Well, explain that a little bit. Explain
why.
Well,
because the skepticism is not the energy field. The skepticism is the ego, is the conscious mind.
Right.
So this goes way beyond the conscious awareness. This is actually the energy that is in nature, that's all around us, that we are. So I have had people come to me. I had a lady who's actually she's a lawyer, very analytical. Everything in her life was working perfectly. She had all the money in the world that she ever needed, and yet she was depressed for 6 years. Went to every doctor she could go to, took every med, saw every counselor, psychologist, came to me on a referral, and she was the most skeptical person ever and analytical in the beginning. And I said, okay, be as skeptical as you want. I'm just going to touch a few points here and there. She felt something because she came back a second time, which was about a week later. I worked on it.
Did you feel something? Could you feel resistance? Could you feel the block?
Oh yeah, for sure. But it's
Okay.
not a deep block. Usually a resistance is definitely an ego block. It's not on a deeper level.
So when she came back to you, how did her energy feel to you the next
More
time?
open. She was still skeptical though.
Okay.
She's like, I don't know what you did. I hear that a lot. I don't know what you did, but I feel different. So I'm like, okay, well, let's continue, But she just questioned. The third time, she was feeling better. After a month, she said to me, you know what? I'm not taking my meds anymore.
Interesting.
And I've been seeing her for a year now. She comes to me, once every couple of weeks. When she needs a tune-up, sometimes once a month. And she is totally better.
Now, when you say, what does totally better mean in your healing world? What is totally better? How do you define that?
Well, she's not depressed anymore. For her,
Okay. So
everyone's got a different definition of what totally better is, but for her, she's not depressed anymore. She's actually more creative. She's starting to enjoy. She wakes up actually enjoying her life and doing things that she wasn't doing before. She started painting again. enjoying her
Interesting.
husband. Her husband, I actually met him. He thanked me because he's much happier because she's happier. So her
Right.
whole family dynamic has changed. I see that, a lot. And so Jin Shin Jyutsu is really, the translation is the artless art of getting to know oneself. That's what it
Interesting.
means. So it's really about. It's not. You can't really look at it as a physical thing like massage therapy. It
Right.
goes more into the mind body connection, and really, it's like a meditation and awareness of what's going on with us. And Jin Shin Jyutsu has to do with our lives and how it's flowing. Is it flowing properly or not? Once we get the physical and mental and emotional everything flowing in the physical in our body and in our world, then what we see coming into our world is flowing.
Well, that's interesting because I was leading to that angle of wanting to ask you how you've seen touch therapy impact others on their journeys of personal growth and spirituality. And you gave us a really powerful example. What are some other ways you've seen touch sessions, touch courses of treatment positively impact the people that you've worked with, or even just stories you've heard through your training? So you have so many years of experience. What are some of the powerful ways that you've seen this help people on their journey?
Oh, I've had so many different stories. I don't even know where to begin, but I mean, I have a regular client. I have a lot of regular clients that come every week because they want to. Because if they
Right.
didn't, like, they have hardcore jobs, and they're stressful jobs. One of them's actually a judge, and
Right.
if he said, if I know for a fact if I wasn't coming to see you that I would not be able to handle what I'm doing, like
Wow.
totally just relieves tension, gives him balance, so he has a different perspective. He can handle all the cases that he sees, and, right?
Right.
Because it's stressful, dealing with other people's stress for sure.
Can you feel if somebody's taking on when negativity within a person doesn't necessarily come from them, like it comes from their job? Is that something you can feel in them? Is that something you can sense in them?
I can actually, yeah. Not all the time, but a lot of times, like, it's their environment that I feel is what's affecting them. And I'll suggest, you know what, like, really protect yourself and your environment. There's certain things they can do, but I can notice a difference for sure.
That's
Yeah,
interesting. Going along with that, we talk about real life here. Okay. We talk about the spiritual journey, we talk about personal growth, but we talk about it in terms of how it impacts us in real life.
right.
As a practitioner, as a seasoned veteran of these modalities, what's a tip or tool from your experience that you can offer us right now people can use today on their journey of spiritual growth or personal development? Is there something that you can give to people that they can take with them?
Well, I think the most important thing that I've seen, especially with my experience from my life, is meditation
Right.
and doing it first thing in the morning. When I
Okay.
wake up in the morning, I don't look at the news. I don't read anything. I usually go to the bathroom, then I go sit down and I meditate. And
Right.
I just make sure before I start the day that I'm in this place of balance and centeredness. And just by doing that, I've noticed everything falls into place naturally.
So what's the technique do you have a particular meditation technique? In our first episode, we talked about something that people can use anywhere, just becoming aware of the breath in any situation. How would you suggest people can get started with that today, right now?
So here's the thing I would suggest. Just make a habit out of sitting in a silent room. And there's no meditation technique that I strongly suggest.
Right.
What I suggest is making the habit out of going and sitting, even if it's for 5 minutes, and build it up. But just doing that, it becomes a part of your program every morning. So
Yeah.
in sitting in silence, don't need to do a mantra, don't need to count numbers, don't need to do any of that stuff. Don't need to do the breath. Just make sure everything's turned off, the phone's turned off, the lights are turned off. Sit in a room and listen, because when we listen to our inner self, that's when we get guided. A lot of people do mantras, and a lot of people do listen to guided meditation. In my opinion, that takes us out of actually listening to ourselves and puts us back in our head, really.
Well, that's very, very, very powerful advice from a very, very seasoned veteran of touch healing.
Thank you.
Well, Howard, thank you very much for being our guest today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. It's just a reminder as you go out there, everyone, explore new ways of being, explore new ways of healing, because you never know when you'll meet someone whose simple touch can really help you in ways you'd never imagine. You can find out more about Howard Chait and what he does at howardshealthhaven.com. The link will be in our show notes at nobodysview.com. And remember, you can always find out more about what we're doing at nobodysview.com or the nobodybible.com, or you can reach out to us on Twitter and Facebook at Nobody's View. If you like what you hear on the podcast, please consider a review or subscription. We'd really appreciate it. Have a good day.
The podcast you just heard was recorded with Anchor. If you want to make your own, download the Android or iOS app completely free from anchor.fm/podcast. That's anchor.fm/podcast.